G'day, Frost Lords and Dad Bods. It's AOS Coach here. We have a new battle tome to talk about. It is the Ogor Mawtribes, and I had to get the #1 ITC ranked Ogre player. That is Jacob Mathias. Hopefully said that correctly this time. And it's a new book, man. It's a new day. The Everwinter has blessed us with what I think is actually quite a good book. I know a lot of Ogre people were super concerned because a lot of the Slaves book got leaked, right? And people are freaking out going, there's no ogres. There's no ogres. It's going to be like a copy pasta type book where it's literally going to be like nothing has changed. And that's why it's not being leaked. But it's a bloody good book.
I'm really happy. Their numbers were a little bit low before, but what they needed in my mind was just a little bit better numbers. And that's mostly what they got. So I'm honestly really, really happy.
Yeah. By the way, thank you, Alec, for becoming a YouTube member. Much appreciated. And I just want to say very upfront in the first minute, I've always been a fan of Iron Blasters. Big fan on the channel. I'm always talking about Iron Blasters.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely. I mean, as any ogre player will tell you, every one of us has ended up with about 4 or 5, just like the magically appearing, along with about 20 bodies that they got spare. So, I mean, there's going to be quite a few of them floating around. I'm betting. Oh, the internet's back. Okay.
Yeah, it's been crazy, right? And by the way, like the Ogre community does not have any insiders. You do. I've had this book for a while now, and it killed me not saying anything. It killed me. I want to just share something with you. I wanted to tell you what to talk about. But that's why we're here, Jacob. We're here to talk about ogres and get your early perspectives, given that it is a new book, given that you haven't had many reps in with the new book just yet. But what are your early thinking? What are you currently seeing in the book that you wanting to explore? And, is it good on both sides? Is there one particular build that is absolutely the build? I want to get into your head to kind of give me some early direction. But before we get into that, what got you into ogres?
Honestly, I've always liked the idea of ogres, always playing the big fat dude in games, always played the warrior, always played the barbarian, whatnot. I played lots of video games for previous years. And I ended up picking up the Total War game. And I had so much fun running Minotaur Doom stacks. And I learned about the ogres through Lore Master Sotek. And him learning the lore about them. They seemed just like right up my alley. And then just kind of reading on from there, it kept on going.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. They are so much fun. And I'll be honest, looking at this book, like for ages, it's always been about Beastclaw Raiders. I think finally, Gut Busters are going to have some time in the sun. It feels like a long time, but it's been ages since I've seen like someone go heavy on gluttons, bring out the Iron Blasters, scrap launchers. There's the new Blood Pelt Hunter where I've seen some people talking about running 3 or even 4 and bringing in like their new version of Severeth just to be annoying. I think there's some good list tech on the other side too.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. When I first started out, my list were the old generic like Tyrant, Gluttons, and Iron Guts, just full list of that. I got beaten down so many times because this was back in the before the original book that we had, the last one technically now. So running around with just generic Grand Alliance Destruction. But yeah, no, this is great to actually have them and like not feel like you're fighting uphill with 2 boulders.
So imagine I haven't watched one of my videos yet, or you haven't picked the battle tome up, or maybe like I'm still very early on this journey. What's changed since the old book to the new book? Not in the macro sense, and we'll get into the weeds and we'll talk about War Scrolls and we'll talk about things that we like, but just what have you noticed going from the old book to the new book?
It's going from the old book to the new book. Not a ton has really changed. It pretty much is going along the same ideas, but it was, in my mind at least, it was mostly number tweaks to kind of bring stuff up to snuff as they've been kind of power crept out of viability. So just kind of bring them back up to snuff, and now they can actually like you can play with the gluttons and the gorgers, as ugly as they are.
Yeah, it wasn't a wholesale change. It wasn't like Maggot Kid of Nurgle that went from that super fast army to a very durable, slow-paced army. There were a lot of small tweaks along the way. What the Iron Blaster got extra range, and instead of doing D6 attacks, it's doing 2D3. The Iron Guts got a rend -2. Gluttons, like there's all these little changes, right? And on the surface, you go, great, +1 rend, who cares? But when you start adding up all the little things, right? The Gulping Bite Mortal Wounds, you add this, you add this, you add the Frost Lord Monstrous Rampages, all of a sudden you realize just how much you've gained. It's a huge amount of things that you've gained.
Yeah, it is. It's the damage that you can do now, whereas before I'd put 6 gluttons on the board and they'd be like, want to be like, oh, well, I just kind of ignore them. Now they're looking at them and they're getting kind of scared because they can slap back now.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people going heavy on gluttons as well. So there's like, ooh, now it's not just battle line tax. It's like I'm building around gluttons.
Yeah, it's a good time.
So what if I was new to ogres, right? Maybe I'm excited about picking up this battle tome for the first time. Like, how would you describe their strengths and their play style? And then I might ask you a little bit about the different sides of the ogres.
All right. So I'd say generically, ogres are, each of their units is pretty strong. You're not like Khorne where you have to focus on your bubbles and keeping stuff in range. You can send a guy off and he'll do okay on his own. There's kind of developed almost a third play style now. You've got like your big fat dudes running down the line. I'm going to charge you and we're going to wall up and it's going to be a funnel brawl. And now we've kind of gotten my local that really like the underguts. So you've got I'm going to shoot you off the table with my big old cannons. And now you've got also this tried and true monster trucks. I'm going to drive my monster truck. Moo moo, here I go. And yeah.
No, I love that there's multiple dimensions, right? You can play with the Beastclaw Raiders. So if you want to run all of the Frost Lords and, the Stonehorns and the Thunder Tusks and the Beast Riders, awesome. If you want to play with ogres and you want to have like the big meat wall and just move forward because you're hungry or you're eating, awesome. If you want to have a bit of a combination, it also works, which is it's a little bit Skaven-esque, but it's awesome. It does give you a lot of, unlike other factions where you've got to play one or the other, this does allow you to mix and match if you want to do that.
Yeah, no, that's honestly my favorite right now is trying to figure it out. As points are a little bit tough, but trying to play around with making a mixed list, I think will do. If you can make the points work, it'll be quite tasty. No pun intended.
By the way, the big Applegate down here painting Iron Blasters while we talk. Go onto Twitter, and there is so many people painting Iron Blasters, 2, 3, 4 Iron Blasters. It's a good time to have some shooting in the list. I think that's been missing, right? Scrap launches have been a joke for a while. Iron Blasters were decent, but just weren't good enough. And now they've got a massive glow up.
Yeah. You had to sink so much in Iron Blasters to make them just do generically okay before, whereas now you can have a little shooty thing and it does okay on its own, which is awesome.
Talk to me about the Beastclaw Raider side for a second. Do you think that's still competitive? Because that's always been the competitive side since day one. It's always been about monster trucks. It's always been about Frost Lords and Stonehorns and just that type of build, and Mournfang, obviously Mournfang as well. Is that still competitive?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's you've got the wound glow up they got, the Changes to mount traits helped out a lot. Thunder Tusks are still a bit iffy. There may be a use for them. It's kind of hard. They may need a points drop to really fit in there. But Huskard's gaining Priest, the Stonehorn, because he wasn't before for whatever reason. So I think Frostlord getting his beef up, the Monstrous Rampages especially. So between the Wounds bump, the Rampages, the changes to mount traits, which there was gains and losses there, but I think overall it came out net good. And then there's still old trusty Kragnos to make sure you're getting where you're going.
Bloody Craggy. And by the way, Noblars, they're not bad. By the way, folks, if you're wondering about the rules that we're talking about, we will get into the rules very shortly. But Noblars, I looked at that and went, maybe I will have a bunch of Noblars. Maybe there's something in the scrap launcher now. I'm like, this is not bad.
I was playing a test game this last Saturday when you were doing your first review show, and one set of Noblars, I was playing against a Khorne player. He charged 2 Bloodthirsters to just try and clear off my screen because he couldn't get to him. Between the 2 Noblars, one Bloodthirster took 8 mortal wounds before he swung. The second one took 6 mortal wounds before he swung. And they also did 3 mortal wounds. I know. I was trolling a little bit hot, but even still, just they're so good.
Oh, hilarious. And what about the ogre side, right? Because you've got the, is there now they're not going to go 5-0. If you 5-0, it's because you're a really good player and you played your list really well. But do you think ogres now are going to rise up competitive scene? You're going to see them more at tournaments and doing well?
Yeah, the Gutbuster side I think is going to do better. It's you're not like I was saying earlier, you're not pushing a boulder up a hill. Now you're kind of kicking a rock down a road. So it's you gained the rend, you gained the damage, the loss of the Tyrant Slap to make stuff Battle Shock immune hurts a little bit, but he's still okay. But yeah, it's definitely going to be way better. Gluttons are scary. Iron Guts are very scary. Iron Guts can do so much work. It's crazy. Yeah, no, that's going to be great.
Is there any other units that you think have really had a glow up lately? Units that you didn't look into previously, but you're like, oh, now it's worth considering adding them to my list?
Noblars, I hated playing with Noblars before because I hated taking unit just to die. Now they can actually do something. I still feel kind of neutral on Lead Belchers. They're random shots. Random shots for 1 damage is meh. But I'm definitely hype on Noblars. Gluttons, I've always loved Gluttons, so I've always tried to take them if I can. But they're definitely I think they're going to be a very strong contender after your necessities almost.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool changes from like Line Breaker, for example. I love that ability on the Mournfang Cavalry, making an opponent having to wound on a 6 when it comes to like Unleash Hell and things like that. That's just spicy.
Oh, yeah. That made my friend who's playing Zinch that I got to play him the other day, that made him quite... as I was talking about it, after I charged the Mournfang in, he's quite familiar with the rule now. Decided that turned that game of charging 2 Mournfang into 9 Flamers and an Exalted. That made him not even just bother shooting because it wasn't worth the time.
Well, it's nice actually with Lumineth, because Lumineth currently people are playing around with Heal-On, which gives you like an extra shooting attack if you're within 6. So it does like some really nasty, like you're seeing it with what are they called? The Beefer of Secrets, the big battle cattle. But it's a wonderful, like you're seeing Stormcast shooting, you're seeing a lot of shooting. When I saw that line breaker rule, I'm like, this is spicy. This is good.
Oh yeah, no, that's going to be really nice for keeping a little bit of shooting off your monsters and even your fat boys if you're sending them in first.
What about the new Blood Pelt Hunter? I know initially when people saw the sculpt, they were like, I hate the head. It seemed like the general consensus. People didn't like the strappy faced eye heads. But now that we've seen the War Scroll, have you picked one up? Is it something that you're considering in a list? Like, where do you stand with this Blood Pelt Hunter?
I feel he's kind of dependent on your meta a lot. I honestly didn't consider taking multiples of them at first. I've seen that discussion a little bit. Having flat damage is nice, but he also hits on 4s, which is really annoying. You can give him the trophy rack. He's got the movement shenanigans, so he may, but I'm not placing him as high in my list of priorities quite yet as even just kind of like a Firebelly almost. I think I like him better. Unless, of course, we change into another monster meta.
Yes, that's the key. Like, it's almost like the same as what I said in my Gargant show, the Beast Smasher. I'm like, I love the idea. If it was 12 months ago in the Monster General's Handbook, where there were lots of monsters and bonus VP, I'm all over it. But at the moment, people have gone in and kind of reduced their monsters, and they're often like hero monsters. They're on like a 3-up save, easy to do, Mystic Shield, all out defense, those types of things. So if you're going to build around it, there's that general trait that we'll go through, and you can kind of bring that down. But otherwise, you could do 3 or 4 of them, and you're playing weight of dice. You're playing like, right, some of them are going to hit, some of them aren't going to hit, but eventually I'm going to do enough damage to pull down those brutal people. And I kind of agree with Triple H here. It's a cool sculpt. I love the idea, but I think honestly, I would have rather an update to the Slaughtermaster, the Butcher, or a new hero as opposed to a different type of new hero.
Oh, definitely. I've got, thankfully, if you look around in certain places, you can find some nice looking Ogre Butchers that end up almost coming out cheaper than the GW ones.
And they're not fine sculpt. Look, there's a lot of cool things with the ogres. I think what we need to do is bring up the rules. We're dancing around it constantly, and people are probably like, what on earth is going on? So how about we bring up the rules and we talk a little bit about your perspective. So first things first, let's ignore Mawtribes for a second, because we'll bring up the Mawtribes in much greater detail later on. But as we go through the allegiance abilities, if I'm someone who is either building a new list or someone who is, trying to get the most competitively, now, if you are a narrative gamer, you're a casual gamer, optimizing your force is not the most important thing. You do you, that's cool. We're going to be a bit more competitive in this kind of perspective. But when you look at these rules, let's go from the top. Might makes right. It allows you to have your ogres counting as 2. So your generic ogres on foot are going to count as 2, while your heroes are going to count as 5, and your monsters are going to count as 10, basically. So you're going to increase the amount of models you count on as an objective. Do you like it? Is it something you build around? How do you leverage might makes right?
It's an awesome rule. It is a ton of fun. I don't necessarily myself build around it, but I keep it in the front of my mind when in a game, because there are so many times where somebody will send like a little assassin something after your back lines, and they'll be like unit of 5, whatever. If you can pick off one single of that little 5-man assassin unit coming after your back line, your little ogre hero can just pop right on that corner, take it right back, and it's no fuss, no muss.
It's a good rule. It's a nice to have, but it's not something you build around. The only thing you probably want to consider at the moment with this General's Handbook is it kind of nullifies Expert Conquerors. Like, there's no real reason for you to be looking at the Expert Conquerors battalion, right?
Yeah, no, don't have the bodies to make it work. You can't make Noblars your Expert Conquerors, which is the only time I'd really even consider that. If you could do it for the Noblars, but otherwise you're adding a whole 1 to your guys. So your base unit, you're getting an additional 6 guys. It's just not worth keeping them out of other battalions, which give you more.
Yeah. And John, like, should might makes right have applied to Yetis? I don't have an opinion on that. Obviously, this is only specifically to like your ogres. So Like your Yetis aren't going to get it, your Noblars aren't going to get it, your Frost Sabers aren't going to get it. It's really just focused on that Ogor Mawtribe Ogre, Ogor Mawtribe Hero, or Ogor Mawtribe Monster.
Yeah. Now, it's one thing I'm a little bit sad about Max Mate Right is they, I think it's been mentioned before, but Mornfang still have 2 rules saying they count as 2. That's always kind of bummed me out that for whatever reason, don't stack, don't work like that, but whatever.
It's a bit weird. One of the big changes. Oh, sorry, not one of the big changes. Sorry, this is a standard change. I'm trying to jump forward to a gulping bite. You've got Ravenous Brute. So this hasn't changed, has it? So basically, your army is either hungry or eating. So each unit, depending on where they're at. So if they are within 3 inches of an enemy, they're eating, and they get +2 to their bravery characteristic. If they're outside of 3 inches, they are hungry, and they got +2 to their movement. So they're either getting +2 to move, or they're getting +2 to bravery. Again, building around it, nice to have. What's your thoughts? It hasn't changed, has it?
No, it's exactly the same. It's, for me, again, it's just a nice to have. It is one thing that, as I talked to a lot of new Ogre players, that they forget the bravery thing. That's actually can make a big deal in games. So that's one of these rules that if you're thinking about Ogres, to always keep this in the back of your head, that pretty much all your foot Ogres are move 8s, your big Stonehorns are move 14, and keeping those Gluttons, those Iron Guts, the Gluttons with the banner are going up to bravery 9, so you got to kill 4 of them before you're risking losing a guy. Same with the Iron Guts. That makes a big difference of losing just one guy out of your units.
Yeah, especially when those models are worth 4, 3, 5. Like those types of units are worth a lot of wounds. So for every point of bravery, especially there's a lot of things going around now shutting off Inspiring Presence. So that just gives you another tool up your sleeve. Is it new Archaon that also now shuts off Inspiring Presence? Like this is a nice little counter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think it was Archaon is within 12. There's that artifact also enslaves, giants, ghosts. There's quite a few floating around. So it's
Daughters of Cain as well. Yeah, there's a lot more interaction of Inspiring Presence or shutting down Inspiring Presence. So that hasn't really changed. It's nice, but you're right. A lot of people need to think a little bit more about the bravery stuff. A lot of people, it's always about the movement, and it's easy to forget about the +2 to bravery. Trampling Charge is another one that hasn't really changed, but I know someone in the chat asked earlier about Kragnos as well. So basically, when you make a charge move, you can roll the number of dice equal to the unmodified charge roll. So if you get a +2 to your charge, that doesn't count. It's just you roll 7 on that charge. You get to roll 7 dice. On a 6, it's a mortal wound. If you are a monster, you are on 4s. And if you have more than 3 models in your unit, they're on 5s. So like, let's say, for example, a unit of 3 Man-Eaters, they would be doing mortals on a 5. A Tyrant Hero would be doing it on a 6. A Stonehorn or a Thunder Tusk would be doing it on 4s. Yeah?
Yep. This is probably one of the main reasons people play Ogres, because it is so much fun to just go blubber, here I go, your unit's dead. But no, this is what makes it fun. And there's a few more rules kicking in now that are interacting with this, unlike before where it was just this is what it is. So having the bonuses that you get for spells and clans and whatnot that come up later, they change the rules here, and that makes it a lot more fun. Ooh, man, the amount of damage you can do out of the combat phase, because when people are considering lists, a lot of time they're considering I can take this much damage in the combat phase, but if you can just delete them with mortal wounds before combat, that throws a lot of people's plans just out the window, and they can start to panic a little bit almost.
Yeah, a perfect example of this is I've been playing a lot of Fire Slayers lately against Fire Slayers, and they have an ability on those magma drops where they splash back mortal wounds for each damage they take in combat. So when I charge, let's say, my Annihilators in and do a bunch of mortal wounds in the charge phase, it means they're not splashing back mortal wounds, and I can get around a lot of abilities before they throw up all out attack or all out defense, or I can bracket somebody, I can clear screens. Trampling charge is so good, and then I can still, if it's a monster, do a stomp. I can still do other abilities in addition to the trampling charge.
Mm-hmm.
Kragnos makes you charge 3d6. Do you think it's worth adding a 700-point hero for Craggy to maximize that trampling charge?
Kragnos does give you the 3d6, but he also helps you in just doing what you want to do. For certain types of lists, you want to be in combat, because unless you're playing that one combat, you want to start smashing, and Kragnos helps you do the damage when you're getting there, and also just helps you be there, period, to do the damage. He can... Points are a little bit hard to finagle, but if you can make him work with the models you want him to work with, like a Frost Lord, and he's not a bad anvil by himself, he is worth it if you're willing to play with the little amount of models you're going to be with, because he's Frost Lord and a half almost, Frost Lord and 2/3 really. So if you're willing to sacrifice Frost Lord and that, cannons you're going to be missing, he can definitely pay dividends. He can take on half an army by himself half the time.
Yeah, Craggy has a cracking weapon profile, so his mace attacks does some serious damage. If you charge into a monster, he does a whole bunch of damage. Is it common knowledge to call Kragnos Craggy? I do, mostly because I run Scraggrot the Loon King, so I run Scraggy and Craggy. It's the greatest tag team since Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. That, like, he does, great damage on the charge. He does great damage with the mace. He's a 2-up save, 18 wounds on a 6-up ward as well. So it's 2-up with a 6-up as well. So he does, like, he can be quite durable, but he's not invincible. So it is 700 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and as you said,
he suffers
it's
from
the cost of 2 Frost Lords.
Apologies. Yeah, just about. The fun thing that he's good at is he has an amazing armor, but not a lot of wounds, where foot ogres have a lot of wounds, but not a lot of armor. So he's actually kind of a nice synergy there if you can get him in the right targets, and vice versa.
Before we get into Gulping Bite, because I love this change. It's so good. Like, when I freaked out for a second, like, because I went through the War Scrolls and I'm like, right, they've all lost this Gulping Bite. What's going on? Then I went to the Allegiance ability, and I'm like, holy shite, this is pretty amazing. I really like it. Before we get into that, Nick asked an interesting question that, it's not all peaches and roses here on the stream. Nick asking, is there any misses you think? What are your top 3 misses when it comes to the book? Jacob mentioning the price of Mournfang, so I assume the points we're talking about here, not the dollars. The gut-buster durability and no foot priests. Do you have anything you'd add, or anything that you think were missed opportunities in this book?
The random attacks on both Leadbelchers and Stonehorns, having random attacks for the shooting I've always found that just annoying. And also having random attacks for random damage on the Stonehorns. I can deal with 1, but 2 can wear you kind of thin after a while. So I was kind of hoping they'd give them a more solid profile. And also the punches and kicks. I was thinking those were going to maybe get rolled into something, but those are super minor. I'm overall, like I've been saying, super pleased with what we got. Points are kind of tough with, but I'm kind of noticing the more I play with points overall that there are kind of feels like bricks of points where you can shift one or two things, get that extra thing in there. There's a lot more, I feel like, playability and shifting this for that, vice versa, overall with how it's working.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with Bartek over here talking about the little to no interaction that Mournfang get with Might Makes Right and Trampling Charge, given that they are units of 2 where you need the bonus to get to 3 or more. So I tend to agree, Mournfang are a great unit, something that I want to see more of. And yeah, they get Line Breaker, but outside of that, they're like in this weird middle ground of not a Stonehorn or a Thunder Tusk, not a Foot Ogre, bit of this, bit of that.
Yeah. And also that weird pistol profile. I wish that would have been either something worth remembering or a single random shot from the boss. It's always first thing to go when you're getting overwhelmed.
Yeah, just don't worry about it. But something you will worry about is Gulping Bite. So now, in the past, each of your Ogre War Scrolls used to have like these stupid, was it 5s and 5s or something? Like it was a weird, why bother type profile.
It was
now. Go on.
Sorry, it was 1 attack per guy, 3s and 3s, no rend 1, just not even inconsequential damage. But this is so much better.
Yeah, so so basically at the end of the combat phase, you get to roll a dice for each unit within 3. So roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of a friendly ogre unit, Gutbuster specifically, and on a 4+, it's D3 mortal wounds. So it's just flat D3, which I think 3s, no rend for 1. Like you go through the sequence, and not a lot's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that before was terrible. This one I'm a little bit weirded out by for whatever reason that man-eaters don't bite. I think that's a little bit weird because man-eaters for whatever reason don't have gutbusters, and also a little bit weird that iron blasters can bite. But this is a fun rule. This is gonna do if you can get like 1 or 2, that last unit of iron guts or gutbusters in the right spot, you can do so much with this. It's gonna be so much fun to see people freaking out because that little hero that was just at the tip of range gets bitten out, dies. Oh, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, no, I dig it. It might help you leading into battle shock. It could be that last wound to kill down a hero or bracket something, or just generally be a pain. It might get you the objective. Who knows, right? Like it's a nice little ability. And being mortal wounds now just is a faster sequence than 3s, no rend for 1. Hopefully man-eaters get like an FAQ, right? Hopefully they get the keyword of Gutbusters.
Yeah, that would fix some stuff. But we'll see. Man-eaters are in an awkward spot.
Yeah, they are. It's funnily enough that one of the units that I really love, and if I ever played ogres, I think I definitely want man-eaters. I just love their sculpts. I just think they are dumb, but dumb in a good way, like a fun way.
Oh yeah, no, I got 12 of them sitting here in my cabinet behind me. I love them too, but I can only take them to fun games, sadly.
Speaking of fun, you've also got Grasp of the Everwinter. So you basically, correct me if I'm wrong, the way this works, right? So you basically roll a dice, and if it's under the battle round, it's a mortal wound. So on turn 1, you can't do any mortal wounds, but as the game kind of progresses, it gets easier and easier to do a couple of chip mortal wounds.
Yeah, this one, it's nice to remember, easily forgotten, because you have to be in combat at the start of your hero phase, and you do just a couple chip mortal wounds. So it's good to remember, but not. Again, it's just a passive thing that happens. Passive thing that happens passively, as long as you remember.
I find it comes into play around turn 3, maybe turn 4. Turn 2, it's pretty rare you to roll a 1, a 2 up, and as you said, you got to be in combat. It might incentivize you in turn 1 to use that +2 movement to charge earlier on. But turn 3, turn 4, you might. Turn 5, there's not going to be a lot of things left on the table, so being in combat is going to get harder and harder, or being within 3. But it is nice to have a couple of cheeky mortal wounds, if you remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
the lot. Go on, sorry.
I wish it worked like the bites, but yeah. Apologies.
And then finally, when it comes to your allegiance abilities, this is the one that I'm excited to talk about. Specifically, this is going to cause nightmares to your opponent. This is going to be I gotcha, but not in a bad way. It's like, how the hell did you do that? I've never seen anything like this. So let's do Thunder Tusk first. Let's save the best to last. So Thunder Tusk is a monstrous rampage. So instead of carrying out Roar, Stomp, Titanic Duel, your Thunder Tusk can carry out Chill of the Everwinter. So after it makes a charge move, so it has to have charged, right? On a roll of dice, for each enemy unit within 1 inch, on a 3-up, it strikes last. So it's nice.
Yeah, it has a little bit of synergy. It can help protect your, as we mentioned, like kind of squishy foot boys from getting slapped around before they get their turn to attack if you're multi-charging. The only problem with this is it's a Thunder Tusk, which Thunder Tusks are not in a great spot, sadly. This kind of makes you halfway consider them, but I'm not thinking it's just not happening.
So are you thinking about it primarily as support? Because like your Thunder Tusk is never the first line of attack. Like it's always a second wave or a supporting piece. It's never your primary. And it's normally people take the Priest, right? Like most people take the Huskard on Thunder Tusk.
Yep. There is kind of a thought, due to the mount traits of taking a Frost Lord on Thunder Tusk, having him be somewhat Anvil, but the amount of damage you lose going from a Thunder Tusk to a Stonehorn, and what you gain is just not there. And the points difference between the two is not worth that at all.
No, it's a hard...
Two more wounds, unless we go into... Sorry about that.
Yeah, apologies, folks, if we're having internet trouble. I've got a massive thunderstorm happening at the moment, so it's probably on my side. Apologies if we happen to be talking over each other. I'm trying to manage this the best we can. Go on, Jacob.
The Beast Riders, the only time this would be good is if we end up in a meta, I think, where we have lots of stuff like Brutes, Ardboys, possibly even if the Lumineth, people want to call them cowboys, whatever those little foot elf cow things are, with the stupid hats. If we end up in a meta of not very fast, pretty beefy, amount of numbers, ones you don't really want to get in melee with because of the shot that Thunder Tusks have, but I'm getting ahead of myself here.
No, that's it. Look, it's nice to have. If I was running a Thunder Tusk, whether it's a Priest, a Beast Rider, or a Stonehorn on Thunder Tusk, a Frost Lord on a Thunder Tusk. If I'm running one of those, like I guess it's situational. It's nice on a 3-up, but do I want to Roar? Do I want to Stomp? Do I Titanic Duel? I guess it's situationally dependent, right? It's just like it's decent, but does it override the others? Question mark. The other one, Jacob, unstoppable charge. All right, you're gonna help break this down, because if people are listening to this and they're not ogre players, you need to know about this rule. You need to understand this, because it is gonna get you and it's gonna hurt, and your bum is gonna be sore, and you're gonna ask what the hell just happened. So, unstoppable charge. Stonehorn only. It must have made a charge in the same turn. So it can't happen when you're in the grind of combat. It is purely only when you charge. Now, Stonehorn is charged. You do trampling charge, couple of mortal wounds, happy days. You use this unstoppable charge monstrous rampage, and it immediately gets to move 3d6 and essentially fly. Now, at the end of the move, each unit you've passed on a 2-up, it has D3 mortal wounds. Now, pull this back for me, Jacob. When do you use it? How do you use it? What do I need to know as an opponent so I don't have this really bad situation? Because I think it's going to catch a lot of people out, and it's going to be this feel bad moment. And it's going to take at least one of these, and you're going to go, right, this is what it does. Talk to me through Unstoppable Charge.
So I try and always mention to people what I do, the fun things like this at the beginning of a game. So this one, yeah, known as Butthurt. That's about right. This is essentially like a stomp, a redeploy, and essentially almost a charge all at once. It would be most of the time people are going to still try and keep screening you out. So what what you can do with this is it lets you get to better engagements, because you don't really want your big monsters fighting in the chaff screen, really. So you can use it. Your average on 3-6 is 10, 11, something like that. And you're going to try and get in. You can get into those back little squishy heroes, some little buff heroes. I had a game the other day where I rolled kind of hot playing against the Beast of Chaos. I charged over his chaff, over his heroes, got right next to his herdstone, was able to take out his little chaff screen and his heroes defending his herdstone. And it's so much fun. It does so much, and it makes your opponent really think about their positioning to try and defend against you. It is so good. Almost makes Frostlord even more necessary than average.
The Frostlord becomes an absolute tank, and what you're going to see very soon is there is an ability to get 2 monstrous rampages. So if you wanted to use Unstoppable Charge and then stomp Titanic Jewel, Smash to Rubble, whatever it is, there is that ability too, if you want to customize that way. And we called it Butt Hurt. We called it Feel Bad. It's not that you are like doing an I gotcha moment. It's just such a very unique rule that I think is going to catch people out the first time, and they go, holy shit, I can't believe you did that. How did you do that? How do I protect myself? And I think the key for this going off successfully is not charging up the middle of the board. Like, you want to like slingshot and find a flank. You want to find a way, because you do have a big ass base. Your base is massive. And as Jacob's already said, the average for a 3d6 charge is a 10. So if you did a 3d6, you got to factor in the back of your base. But if you can tag on the side either way and then like slingshot around the back using fly, you're going to get yourself in a really good position. But if you try to jump screens and things like that with a bad roll, I think you're going to find you're going to block yourself off, or you're not going to make the most of that rule. Jacob, agree, disagree? Any additional thoughts?
Agreed, definitely. There is one little thing that if you're getting a bad roll, if you like say like I've done a few times and you get that like 3 or 4, you can tag, like just touch the front of their base or front base of their screen right there, back up to that 2.9, and just make their piling into you that much more awkward, cause coherency issues and whatnot, make them think about that. But there's so much utility in this, getting where they don't want you, making them spend more bodies to try and screen you out, giving you more free reign of the board just because the threat of this and what you can do. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think Eric's nailed it here. Unstoppable Charge feels like a faction-defining rule in it, with its unique and potential impacts. You know, being able to slingshot off a unit and get onto an objective where you normally couldn't get onto an objective, to move around chaff screens and get into that squishy hero, that synergistic piece in the backfield, pull down their general, get into where their faction terrain is and destroy their faction terrain, whatever it might be. There's a lot of inter-game mechanic when it comes to Unstoppable Charge that even if I was a Gutbuster, I feel like I would have at least one Stonehorn in my list for this rule. Like, it's such a good rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this is amazing. Probably it and Trampling Charge are probably going to wait. Between that, Might Makes Right and Trampling Charge are going to be what makes ogre players the good ones, and the wheat from the chaff, really.
Yeah. I just can't wait to Colossal Slam your Stonehorn. My Gargants are going to take you to Suplex City. So you've got a couple of command traits. You've got your Gust Busters. You've got your Beast Claw Raiders. I'm not going to read these out. I'm going to assume that
That'll be fun, actually. Think about. Sorry about that.
No, please go on.
So apologies, a little bit of lag there. For these, I think it was Howe that said it earlier that it's really cool that they gave you one really good trait to take for each of these. the let's see, the Gastromancer. If I was playing Blood Gullet, which I really think would be fun because the ogre spells are really good. All of them are really impactful and do a lot. That one could be fun to use, but really, if you're taking a Gutbuster hero trait, you're probably looking at Killer Reputation. Ex Mercenary is a ton of fun. Like I said, like me and Coach were saying earlier, that Man Eaters are a ton of fun, but they're just not quite up to snuff right now. So if you're making your general a Gutbuster, it's probably going to be Killer Reputation, making him a little tiny fat Stonehorn with his 3-up save and his 5-up ward. As for Beast Claw, there are actually two choices I'm really excited about. Voice of the Avalanche seems like it could have a lot of play with playing each of your pieces kind of as individual little units, because for whatever reason you don't have elite on your Stonehorn Riders, which is annoying to say the least. Also having, if you're doing stuff like trying to do Unleash Hell with a cannon that's out on its own, stuff like that, like they sniped off your little butcher supporting the cannon. But having Touched by the Everwinter, giving your Frost Lords a prayer is awesome. Having the prayer lore is 2 out of 3 are really, really good. +3 move is amazing. Plus doing the hailstorm, not super reliable, but in the right situations, it can do some nice chip mortal wounds, which with as much chip as we have, add up a lot. And then also there's also heal, which can do a lot for us as well with how beefy Stonehorns are.
Yeah, and even like if you want to go into curse range as well, given that you are going to be in combat, if you want to be able to seek that out as a generic universal prayer, it's also worth considering. I do like the priest keyword, but I want to loop back for a second. Two things. Question from the chat. I think it's a good one worth asking. Flamingo Pie asking, is it worth taking a Stonehorn Thundertusk Beast Rider if you can't fit a hero version in your list?
A Stonehorn Beast Rider can have some play. If you don't have any other Stonehorns and you can't get a Frost Lord or a Huskard in there, then Stonehorn Beaters are not. You would be much better served taking Gluttons or Iron Guts, as they cost the same, and they do way more damage, way more threatening, and the Gutbusters, or the Gluttons actually count for more on objectives for a full unit. So it's not even, yeah.
The other one that I wanted to loop back on was Deadly Aim. Now, we talked a little bit about the Blood Pelt Hunter, and it's got some play. I think one of the things holding it back is the fact that it hits on a 4. Is it worth making your Blood Pelt Hunter your general and going for Deadly Aim, getting it the hit characteristic of 2 instead of 4? So I guess it's a free all-out defense, all-out attack +1. But it also means you could probably run multiple. So you could have 2 Blood Pelt Hunters, 1 and a 2-up, 1 using all-out attack to get it down to a 3-up. And if it hits that monster, the spear is 3 damage, the other one's 6 damage. So if they go through, it can be brutal.
Yeah. I'm not as sold on this just because he's only rand 1 with the crossbow, and it's only 2 shots, and there's only 1 shot on the harpoon he's got, which again, it's when a single shots just are never worth it. The 2 shots are only D3 3. There may be some play about giving him your trophy rack and having him hide as a general, maybe doing this in like small games where you can't physically fit a tyrant or a butcher, or you just don't want to take the ugly butcher sculpt even. But I just don't see it right now. Again, kind of meta dependent, but we don't see enough monsters. We see one monster, and that monster is usually tough as nails, and this ain't gonna serve you well enough.
Yeah, that's my concern. You know, a lot of monsters running around with 2 up, 3 ups. Like, sure, if your meta is full of Cockatrice and the Mind Stealer Kitty Cat and all of these other, 5 up, 4 up, 6 up type monsters, yeah, but they're not the ones terrorizing. It's the 2 up, 3 ups, 16 wounds. It's the things that are likely not to go through. So it's a good idea, I think, deadly aim, but I probably yes, John, I agree. I think I agree with you 100%. I love the fact that the Blood Pelt Hunter can move in your enemy's turn if it's outside of 9 inches of the unit. I love that. But would I over invest making my command trait and making the Blood Pelt Hunter my general? I feel like I'm wasting resources if I'm trying to optimize my build. Yeah, but yes, it does. It does help with some of the tactics. But remember, there's a new General's Handbook coming pretty soon. So I guess let's see what the new meta is. If it goes back into a monster meta, awesome. If we go into infantry, then probably not.
Actual infantry GHB, right?
Take 2. Try again. But yeah, I do love the ability. I love that there's a couple of other abilities, like even the kitty cats, the frost sabers. When they're on terrain, you can't see them; they can't be targeted. I think there's some really great play there as well.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a trick there. It's the 80 points for 6 wounds and a 5 bravery, I think it was. That's kind of painful.
Yeah, they're definitely not very good, but there's some interesting tricks in there. What do you think are some of the best choices from the artifacts? Both you obviously your Gutbusters, your Beast Claw, and then you got your mount traits. Do you have any favorites that kind of spring to you?
For the Gutbusters, the Gruesome Trophy Rack, I'm pretty sure you're going to be seeing that pretty much every list almost having because the +1 to hit against heroes and monsters, putting your stuff either from 4s to 3s for the shots and whatnot, or from 3s to 2s for pretty much all your melee profiles. That's so nice. It's going to make whatever hero is holding it a priority target for your opponent almost. You can use that to your advantage, kind of baiting them, try and make them positioned to get into him. But the Gruesome Trophy Rack is by far and above for me the top. I love Splatter Cleaver. I'm so sad that they made it to be Gutbuster only. I loved having that on my Frostlord all the time. That was, I love that so much. Make him a little beefier. And I think the Flask of Stonehorn Blood, Howe was talking about having that before for your Blubbergrub Butcher, which I honestly hadn't considered that yet, but I like that idea a lot for that one phase when they're trying to get in and do him dirty. But Thing of Gur, I don't think is going to do it because you're rocking a whole 2 attacks on him, which again is just lack of attacks. It's random damage, procs on a 6 for the actual good damage. Only if you're targeting a hero monster, nada. And for the Beast Claw, Frost Tile and Shard Bolts that's just terrible. That affects a whole 1 attack from 1 guy at short range. Just terrible. The flank, the move an extra 2. They're already pretty fast. They got the 6-inch pylon. I don't think if you're playing with Yetis, the Kavalok's flank's going to do you a lot of good. The Elixir, the Frostworm, if you're having fun, if you're like out of ideas, you've already got, you're taking like double Warlord or whatever, you got 3 artifacts. That one, maybe I could see it to try and snipe out a back hero, but the Seat of Alvagar is the one I'm more interested for the Beast Claw. Having, especially combined with our redeployment, essentially, redeploy after charge for the Stonehorn, so you can get to more juicy targets. Being able to do a smash down on like a Lumineth Temple or a Seraphon Temple or a Beast Claw Hearthstone. Beastmen, Herdstone, excuse me, is really impactful. Being able to trample over a hero, then try and stomp it to death. If it's one of them little buffy heroes, that can do a lot of good. I think there's some play for Seat, but it is going to play second fiddle to Gruesome Trophy Rack.
Yep, keep going.
Then for the mount traits, Rockmane Elder, that's going to be always again first pick. That's just -1 to wound is so powerful. Makes all your opponents' head math go off when they're trying to take down your already 3-up save, 5-up ward hero. Just sets their math off in their head off so much. Belligerent Charger, I don't really see a need for that. If you're rolling less than 7, you're already you're not doing it for the mortals, really. Metal Cruncher, I can see that as like a second choice to help with Slaves, Stormcast, Archaeons, Bastillodons, etc., etc. Losing the 4-up from before, but getting the 1-up, it hurt more than it helped, but it was kind of necessary. I don't know if I'd say necessary, but at least it's still there. At least it's still an option. It didn't just go all the way away. And then for Thunder Tusks, I probably won't see these much. Matriarch, you're never going to see because you never charge your Thunder Tusks. Well, really ever. The Rhymefrost Hide, if you ever take a Thunder Tusk hero, that's the one you're going to be picking, because making a Thunder Tusk a pseudo Stonehorn, that's just going to carry its weight in gold. Flesh Greed, if your Thunder Tusk is in combat, it's probably dead. Healing D3 to a dead unit don't do much.
Yeah, I think one thing I just want to call out just really quickly on the Gutbuster, and this kind of got missed by a few people, is that Gruesome Trophy Rack is not for melee, it's for everything. So it's +1 to hit rolls for attacks made by Gutbuster units. So you can use it with your Iron Blasters. You can use it with your tyrants, your gluttons, your all your troops, right? So don't sleep on it. I think again that's kind of what increases the value of the Gruesome Trophy Rack, especially with people taking 2, 3. I mean, four cannons is a bit overkill, but the Gruesome Trophy Rack is just so good.
Free all-out attack everywhere. If you're targeting a hero monster, so worth it.
Yeah. Where is the gut plate of Gur? I don't know. I think you just have to wear it to your next event, build a gut plate. There were a couple of artifacts missing, and they've kind of streamlined things. But I think we don't have any 1,000 point list for you. But if you want to jump onto Discord, we definitely link down below in the episode. You will find that we are a very hungry community who are building lists. I think if you're on the Beastclaw Raiders side, building 1,000 point list is very easy. It's like 2 monsters, the end. Or maybe two monsters and some Mournfang, the end. Your Gutbusters, I guess it depends on, like, you want to have a couple of Gluttons, you want to have a Butcher or a Slaughtermaster, maybe some Noblars, just some chaff.
Them Noblars.
Anything? I mean, they're good. Noblars are good for 100 points for 20 wounds. They're such good objective controllers, board deniers. They're just so stupid. And then obviously the little ability they've got where if you, what is it, a move, a pile in, a retreat, like if there's any move action on a 4-up, they do D3 mortal wounds. So as you mentioned, the Bloodthirster taking 8 mortal wounds before it struck. That's brilliant.
Oh yeah. No, Noblars are great.
And I tend to agree. The 5-up ward on the Thunder Tusk is good if you are going to go that way. But I think, from what we're seeing so far, it's all about the Stonehorns. But also even there's some good choices if you're on the Gutbuster side. And I agree with you with the Seat of Alvagar was probably my favorite of the Beastclaw Raiders. Cool. Jacob, let's talk spells. Let's talk spells and prayers. Any of your favorites kind of coming up here?
all of these are really good. Molten Entrails is hilarious, hilariously strong. It is crazy that it's got a casting value of 6, making your Iron Blasters and your not Iron Molten Entrails, Blubber Grub. That's what I was trying to say. Blubber Grub, making the Iron Blasters and the Scrap Launchers count as monsters for charging, which is what it did before. But now they've added in they count as monsters, counting as 10, and also they can do monsters rampages. That's insane. Being able to have your Stonehorn do his little shenanigans, charging in with your your Iron Blasters to do the roar, so it's not taxed off your Stonehorn, having them do a stomp in addition, that can add up so much. Also, it's kind of hilarious to have a cannon charge a piece of terrain and smash it to rubble, but Blood Feast, it's simple, but the amount of strength you get for having +1 attack on your Iron Guts, your Gluttons, that's a lot of damage. Especially
and your Iron Guts got Ren 2 now, so Ren 2 +1 attack. They are very nasty.
It fight twice. That's essentially +2 attacks on them, really, if you consider that. Molten Entrails, it's a good solid spell just to give you additional damage, make your Stonehorns get that little bit extra damage, make sure that risky charge you did, that darn little hero doesn't survive with 1 wound or something like that. And Greasy Deluge, giving -1 attack to a target, it's not bad. It's not super high on my priority list, but it's definitely a good defensive one, making their that one big hitty thing, trying to keep your Stonehorn safe, or make sure your Chaff Wall survives for that 1 round so you can get into better positions.
So how would you rank them?
Then going for the Fire Bellies.
Before Fire Bellies, how would you rank the Butcher ones? Like if you only had 1 or 2 spells, what are your first ones you would choose?
It kind of depends on the list you're building. If you're building for Foot Ogres, definitely Blood Feast, Greasy. If you have any Iron Blasters, like if you have 1, I still think I would take Blubber Grub, just because the charge, the damage, the impacts, that makes a huge difference. If you're building for monsters and you don't have any Iron Blasters, then I would go for Molten and Greasy. So I'd say in order of priority, Blubber Grub, then Molten/Blood Feast if you're Gutbusters heavy, monster heavy, and then after that, Greasy as a kind of nice side. One other thing I'd also put in your mind if you're thinking about this is Levitate. Giving your Stonehorns fly normally, or making flying Iron Guts, is hilarious to imagine, and also extremely effective for increasing their mobility. And hard to cast, but if it goes off, it is scary.
It's also one of the reasons that you might not take Noblars, because it's super easy to chaff yourself up and you trying to move around. But if you can fly over those screens of Noblars, you're laughing.
Oh yeah.
We're at the Fire Bellies.
So moving on to the Fire Belly then. All right. Billowing Ash, that's probably going to be your standard if you have 1 Fire Belly, because it's essentially Greasy Deluge on steroids, having -1 to hit for all of your stuff within 12 of him, having him hide inside your Mop Pot, giving him some cover, maybe Lookout Sir, and then having everything yours that you're trying to defend, your nice center core, -1 to hit. You're just kind of pretend like you're a Lumineth, sitting there peppering away with your -1 to hit. Then we got Tongues of Flame. I could see this being incredibly useful in a couple situations, but I don't know if it comes up enough to really warrant it. Tongues of Flame would be incredibly deadly against stuff like Nighthaunt, who want to retreat and charge every turn. It would be great against Skaven, who want to have their chaff moving all the way, getting in your way, retreating out, charging in. a couple other situations, perhaps Stormcast, but they're very, very few times are they more than 5 models. But having those couple little liberators or whatnot that are 5, making them take that D3 and it will also stack with Noblars, because it would be move within 6, D3, D3, charge, D3, D3. That could be a bit of a deterrent. It's 18, so you got to be kind of close. I don't know if Spell Portal's worth it really for ogres. It's good, but I gotta play around with it more to see. Fiery Whirlwind, it's nice, but we don't have a hard time killing chaff. That's one of our specialties. So putting a hat on a hat doesn't really do a lot.
No. Question from the chat. I think this is an easy answer. I was just rereading the rules. Can you turn an Iron Blaster into a monster and then use molten entrails? The answer, correct me if I'm wrong, is no, because you're not turning the blubber grub stench is not turning him into a monster. It's just treating them as monster for trampling charge. That won't work, will it?
Yeah. No, you're correct. It wouldn't work. There is one question, one kind of FAQ, I guess, for Blubber Grub is because the Iron Blasters are considered, what is the wording? Treated as monsters for the purposes of carrying out monster rampages. So does that mean as, say, a Gargant, they can flip my Iron Blaster? Or does it count only for me carrying them out? Or does that count for monster actions being carried out on them? That's a question I got for the FAQ. I could see it both ways. Yeah, it's got to see on the FAQ, really. Because making them stomp immune could be kind of nice. Go ahead.
I would rule it as, at the moment, because it doesn't say you carrying out monstrous rampages, it's just open. I imagine it opens up the floor for both of us doing monstrous rampages to the Iron Blaster. But definitely I can see that an FAQ clarity definitely is required there.
Yeah.
What about your priest? What about your
move
Beast
on
Claw
to the
Raider
prayers?
priest? Yeah. What about your Beast Claw Raider priests?
The priests are, because of the priest, that is opening these up a lot. Call of the Blizzard is probably not going to get seen with Yetis and Frost Sabers as they are now. If you're taking 2 of them, you're not spending a prayer to try and bring one back. It's just not worth it. Keening Gale is really interesting. If you're playing like a Kragnos list, and this is one that also may need an FAQ, because it gives you this +3 to your move for a friendly monster or Mournfang pack. So that's putting Mournfang up to move 14, and your Stonehorns at full bracket up to a 17-inch move. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's getting pretty darn fast there when you're approaching 20-inch move per move. Thunderbellies if you're auto 6ing the Thunderbellies, sorry about that.
I was just gonna no. I was just gonna say it's just the lag between our countries at the moment. Just again, I've got a really heavy apocalyptic storm happening outside. But with I guess just for the folks at home, where Keening Gale becomes powerful is it means that you get to reduce the amount of risk of failing that charge. Right, is going to give you more opportunity to get where you need to be to cap that objective. To especially like as you mentioned, is it the Beast Riders? They're not elite, so they can't issue their own commands, right? So you don't have the luxury of being able to, well, I mean, unless you obviously had the issue commands from anywhere, it de-risks that situation.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious because the previous instance of this had Ogre Monster. They removed the Ogre caveat from the monster part. Yeah, and just like Romulan Dog said here, having +3 move on Kragnos, that's one, again, I'd have an FAQ on because of the whole Kragnos can't be affected by allegiance abilities. Is a prayer an allegiance ability?
No, I think he should be able to get the Keening Gale. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't be able to get Keening Gale.
Yeah. So putting Kragnos up to 13-inch move, 30% increase on him, making him even more getting in your face, keeping him just 1 inch slower than your base Stonehorns, making him also more likely to get those charges, keep his aura up further. Keening Gale is really nice. At the moment, I'm kind of partial to Pulverizing Hailstorm since it got better on both the prayer value and the damage, the 2-up instead of a 3-up like it used to be. Just because people tend to, when they're kind of coming up to you with their shooting units and whatnot, they've usually got a hero nearby to issue orders and whatnot. So being able to peck a few mortals, and this is just adding on that pecking damage that can add up real heavy. Peck a few mortals at that shooting unit, peck a few mortals at that that little hero here holding in the back, and it's a whole pick up spot at 18, and then within 3 inches of that. So if you got a little hero or a little shooting unit within 21 of you, that's to do D3 mortals. That's a whole long strike. If you roll average, that's not a lot, but it adds up. And it's AoE. Also, there's also heal, which is just going back around to making your Stonehorns live longer, do more damage. It can add up again. Mawpot, heal, Winter's Endurance, 3d3 healing on your Stonehorn, bring them right back up.
Yeah, especially because you can't heal with heroic recovery in combat. So how do you heal and try to grind out your opponent? Use the heal prayer. That's a really good call. That's a really good call. But I'd probably agree with you. Pulverizing Hailstorm and Keening Gale. Pulverizing Hailstorm, especially in the early game where armies are clustered up and you are getting the return of castles. Lumineth, Seraphon, Tzeentch, for example, they're all castling up at the moment. Great for that area of effect damage. Cool. How are we going with the internet team? Can everyone hear me? Am I okay? Sorry, again, I got really bad internet right now. Yeah.
There we go. I see you.
Cool, Jacob. We're all good. We're all good now?
All right. I
Cool.
think so.
All right. I was just saying that I agree with you on Pulverizing Hailstorm and Keening Gale, especially with a lot of castle armies like Tzeentch, Seraphon, Lumineth, all castling up at the moment. Getting that area of effect damage works really well for them.
Yep.
Cool.
It's I think it'll pay off in the end.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and it's a prayer, right? So they can't counter it. It's not like a spell. Where do you stand with the Mawtribes? Do you think they're all good? Or do you think there are some that are stronger than others right now?
For this, we got 4 out of 6 really good choices. One that's a little bit questionable, and one that I don't think you'll ever see really. Winterbite that's pretty strong to be just types of units can't be seen outside of 12, like the Cruel Boys have, but yours are specified on your Hunters, Frost Sabers, and Yetis, which you're not going to see. So I don't think you're going to see Winterbite much unless we go into a full shooting meta with the next GHB being -1 to hit for everything in your zone. Maybe, we'll see. Thunderbellies is the one a step above, having run and charge on your Mournfang, putting them up to anywhere from 12-inch to 17-inch move with a run. You lose the pistol shot, but that ain't worth much anyways. So that one, if you're running like 12, 15 Mournfang, or excuse me, 14 Mournfangs, just a whole bunch of them to get them everywhere, that could do something. But I think we're going to see Blood Gullets probably also in that not quite ideal. Our spellers are good, and you're essentially getting 100% additional spells. I don't think we're able to lean into it. The max you can get is a +1 bonus, only if you're near the pot. I love it. It's my favorite, but probably not going to be at the moment our best. Meat Fist has some really kind of crazy combos it can do, kind of little Timmy combos between the Tyrant with the Brawler Guts name, Kragnos, just having MSU, Gluttons, and Iron Guts running around doing mortals on a 4-up, acting like they're monsters at their base size, having the Iron Blasters if you get the Blubber Grub, and have them charging in, doing mortals on a 3-up. Same with the Tyrant with his big name, doing them on a 3-up. That could add up really quick. Sadly, stuff like Man-Eaters, we were saying before, don't get it. So, Boulderhead and Underguts, I think, are going to be our best ones for the moment. If you're doing any amount of shooting with Iron Blasters, having Underguts is probably going to be our best bet. Having Ren 3 on the cannonballs and almost more importantly, Ren 2 on the shotgun shot is going to do so much for you. You got to keep them safe, but when they hit, they're going to tank stuff. It's crazy how effective they from where they used to be to where they are now. And Boulderhead, if you're doing that that Craggy Frost Lord, or even just 2-3 Frost Lords and Beast Riders combo, Boulderhead's going to be where it's be at. Make sure you got that that stones, the -1 to wound trait, the Metal Cruncher trait, and then probably not anything else after that, realistically.
Yeah, Boulderhead's hot. Boulderhead is absolutely hot. And it's always been hot. Like, it's always, you're getting your Stonehorn and your Thunder Tusks, getting them have +2 wound characteristic is just great. It's the Lofnir of Beast Claw Raiders. But at the same time, getting three enhancements, getting 3 mount traits is always going to be helpful, because it means you could take Warlord or another battalion to get spells or prayers or something else, or even look to reduce your drop. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, while the Underguts, especially as we've talked about Iron Blasters or even like Lead Belchers, one of the glow ups that Lead Belchers had was they went from range 12 to range 18. So I think they're a little bit more viable now than they have been. So Underguts is definitely a good option. Before we kind of continue, I just want to give a massive shout out to the WA. Thank you for your donation. Thank you for filling the More Pot. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. But we also had a good question, actually, because I really like Man-Eaters, but there's not a lot of synergistic things happening here. So Hello World asking a good question. Is there a particular tribe that you would run your Man-Eaters, given that they currently don't have the Gutbuster keyword? So they kind of don't quite fit into any of these ones when it comes to like getting some abilities.
If that's kind of a hard one, because they don't synergize for anything, they don't give you, they have no reason to take one over the other. So it would honestly depend. If you're taking Man-Eaters, you're probably taking either little sides of them, and so you're going to be taking you're going to be using like the Tyrant double name trait. So you'd probably be running Meat Fist, just because your battle line in that case would be Iron Guts, Lead Belchers, and Gluttons to give you more room. But if you're putting, for say, the honestly really fun ex-mercenary on like a Butcher or something, then go and Blood Gullet just to get the extra spells, get that Mystic Shield on the Man-Eaters, get that +1 attack on the Man-Eaters, trying to get the -1 to hit on the targets that are targeting them, help them survive a little bit better, because they're really squishy. Blood Gullet to give the support to the Man-Eaters would probably be my bet. Have them doing that, have a Firebelly doing his little bit of support casting. That'd be my bet if you were trying to go really heavy into Man-Eaters.
Unless you go Underguts to give them some firepower from behind the scenes. So while your Man-Eaters are moving up, you got some Lead Belchers or some Iron Blasters supporting, chipping away in preparation for them.
Yeah.
I think to your point, though, there's just not a lot of synergistic stuff when it comes to the Man-Eaters, unfortunately. But at the moment, I guess it just depends on what else is around it. But I don't want to spend much time on this particular one. It hasn't really changed a lot. But has there anything that's changed when it comes to your battle line options, where you're like, oh, now I'm considering taking an Icebrow Hunter to run Frost Sabers as battle line, or is there any real reason to go with Icefall Yetis and make your general a Thunder Tusk? Is there anything that you want to call out this particular point?
Gluttons are way more damaging, impactful than they used to be. Doing the Hunter tech for cheap battle line, that's gotten a decent amount more expensive than it used to be. And Yetis, just as before, paying the Thunder Tusk tax is too much. And they're not even the cheapest battle line. They lost their -1 to hit, which was kind of one thing that they had going for them. I just don't see it. So Glutton stonks up, Sabers and Yetis down, really.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd want to make, and now, like, if I'm building Gutbusters, I feel like the Tyrant is probably my first choice as a general. I don't know if I want to make the Icebrow Hunter or even a Thunder Tusk if I want the Icefall Yeti. I feel like the left-hand side, whether it's the Gluttons, the Iron Guts, the Lead Belchers, the Beast Riders, the Mournfang pack are probably where I'm going to mostly sit my battle line options. It's the right-hand side is not very attractive to me.
Yeah.
You tend to agree, which is good. We've also got 4 grand strategies and 6 battle tactics. Let's start at the grand strats. Do you see, and obviously we are at the cusp of a new General's Handbook, right? So I don't want to be rubbishing too many things too soon, because the new General's Handbook might be a whole lot harder grand strats. They could be a whole lot easier. So it's hard to pick. So just within this frame here, are there ones that probably stand out better than others for this particular grand strat selection?
For our grand strategies, Ready to Plunder, I think, is the only one that realistically you can even do in most games. Saga of the Monster Hunter, you can, if you're playing against Night Haunt, you just don't get your grand strategy. On the Maw Path, it's possible, but significantly harder. And again, it's limiting your options a lot, because if a few of these, you got about 3 ones that are possible, but a couple of the battle tactics are significantly harder, if not downright impossible. So you're about almost guaranteed to lose that one, because you have to do 4 out of 5. And then Enough Grub for All, it's just too easily denied. You have to kill something after your pot's been emptied within 6. It's just too unlikely to happen. I think Ready for Plunder it's realistically doable. It's the same as one we've got right now. But I think that one is one to kind of keep in the back of your head if they end up significantly changing the next GHB, because it's a copy of one we've got right now.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? Is that we are on the cusp of a new General's Handbook. It's likely to drop December, if not January. So we are middle of November. So assuming that we lose the current battle pack, I'd say Ready to Plunder or Sage of the Monster Hunter are probably the 2 ones that I like. The question is, how do I keep my general alive? So getting the heal, as you mentioned, finding other ways to make my general survivable is going to be critical, because I can kill a monster, but the challenge is that some armies don't run monsters. So you just automatically lose your grand strategy if there is no enemy monster in their army list.
Yeah, and I think Saga the Monster Hunter, I'm not sold on that, because there's gonna be so many Archaeons running around. I don't see that that one time of getting that and then it's just gone. There's gonna be Archaeons everywhere, and then how many armies just don't even bother running monsters right now? That's gonna be a real tough one.
And then Archaon does Slayer of Kings to your Frostlord on Stonehorn.
Yep.
So yeah, I think Ready to Plunder is the one that's most likely to be scored, but there's no easy one, right? A smart general is going to avoid your Maw Pot for Enough Grub for All. On the Maw Path does reduce the flexibility of the options during the game. And we've already just talked about the Sage of the Monster Hunter. So I think Ready to Plunder, if I was forced to play in the battle pack, or I don't have many good options in the General's Handbook, Ready to Plunder is the one.
Yep.
What about the battle tactics? Do you like them? Are there ones that maybe you would use more often, or are there ones that kind of stand out to you for any reason?
Avalanche of Flesh being realistically achievable in almost every game, I think that one is one to keep at the top of your list. Just doing 10 mortal wounds with your charge is incredibly almost easily achieved. If you're charging 2 to 3 models in with average charges, you're probably getting that battle tactic. And it's also flexible enough where if you're like 1 or 2 short, you still got the option of throwing that little foot hero in or whatever to try and get that last 1 or 2 wounds to get your tactic this turn. Eat your fill, a little bit harder, but again, possible. Being able to just throw all what you've got left in like the last turn or two, if it's like just your Frost Lord instead of Mournfang, because it is done at the start of the combat phase. So as long as you don't you don't kill them on the charge, which is possible, but as long as you don't kill them on the charge, start a combat, you can complete your tactic. Savor the Taste. Again, that's one that also I could see for endgame if you're running off trying to get those objectives from a mostly defeated army. That one could easily be also achieved. Winter Take Thee. That's probably never going to happen. You have to have a hero on 1 or 2 wounds in combat with a Beast Claw, and you have to. It's relying on less than turn number roll to then do D3 mortal wounds to an opponent that's already almost dead or and doesn't have a ward. It's just there's so many chances for that to just straight up fail because you can't stack it. You can't have multiple Beast Claw in combat with something. It's one guy. That it's taken that one dice roll 3 or 4 times to see if it maybe happens.
And it's not like you can pick them off with a Blood Vulture or anything else. Like it's straight up, it has to happen at the grasp of the Everwinter. So, I mean, if you won the double turn or something, and like you happen to have not killed the hero by 1, and you happen to find yourself at the start of the hero phase with 1 wound left, sure.
Maybe, but even so, if you're doing that early game, trying to get flip a coin, if you're doing it like turn 3, getting a 1, 2, or 3 to then do D3 mortal wounds, yeah, it'd have to be in game. That's going to be hard.
It's a turn 4, turn 5 thing. And just really quick before you continue, Flamingo Pie, unfortunately, Gargants can't kick terrain features. They can only kick objectives. So it'd be amazing if we could kick the Morpot forward as a mercenary to get you closer into the battle. Because I think to someone else's comment as well down below, the range of filling up the Morpot is quite restrictive. So if you could either kick it forward, bring it forward, have a greater range of 12 to 18 inches, I think it definitely makes things like enough grub for all and eat your fill easier. But because you have such a minimum range, it's too risky for me. It's just too risky in a competitive landscape.
Yeah, and yeah, I wish we could set the Mop Pot up a little bit closer, but its footprint can be, you get if you position it slightly wrong, like I've done this more times than I can count, where I slightly misjudge the width of like my Stonehorn base or something, and I can't fit between that big building and my own Mop Pot and end up having to go all the way around because I made some silly mistake, game 5 or whatever. It can backfire a lot, but keeping on with the battle tactics here, let them loose. That one is, I got a question if it's going to be carried out. Does that mean successfully, or if you just attempted them? If it's just attempted 4 different monstrous rampages and you had Blubbergrub go off, that's a done deal. Having 4 Stonehorns / Thunder Tusks, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. So it's going to be a lot if you're betting on getting off Blubbergrub. But it's possible, and if it is just attempted to, if you selected them to be done instead of successfully, you didn't roll the 1 on the stomp or something like that, that one will be good. boil their bones is going to be. It's possible, but if they're near your maw pot, you're in a bad spot. But having a hero or monster, you have to empty it in your hero phase. It's possible, but really unlikely. Your opponent can redeploy out. Your opponent can, do so much, and you're risking it all on one guy. It's a choice, but it's really unlikely for the circumstances to line up for that.
All the more reason why on the Maw path becomes a bit dicey as a grand strategy, because there are some that are clutch. And as you just mentioned, right, if I'm within 6 inches, I redeploy outside of 7. Yeah, sure, you kill my hero or monster, but now I'm out of range of the Maw pot and you failed that battle tactic. So it's questionable. Couple of quick ones. Angus asking a question. So you couldn't do what you're thinking. I like the way you're trying to be a bit sneaky like a Noblar. So you'd have to pick your battle tactic before you roll for the Everwinter. So you can't do the Everwinter and like then try to sneakily see if you could pull it off. It is a risky play. Hello World asking probably a very good question. It's an hour and a half and we haven't even talked about this. What's our favorite food or dish? What is our favorite food or dish? And I expect people in the chat and on the replay to be following along and playing this game. So what is your favorite food or dish?
Oh, a nice smoked brisket. That's what's for me. Dry rubbed overnight. Ooh.
So I'm gonna go with what I had for dinner last night, which was Lebanese. So I had a flat grilled chicken. So it's like a charcoal grilled chicken with tabbouleh and hummus and some leb bread and some pickles and bloody delicious. Bloody love Arabic Lebanese food. Some of the best food in the world. I love it. What's other people's like? Let us know what your favorite food is. Like,
I need to expand my
going
palate.
in the Maw pot? Ooh, Lebanese food, Arabic, it's so good because it's also like it's very much like barbecue, right? You use your hands, you put it in like this flat Lebanese bread. It's kind of like Mexican, but it's not. It's another world. So cool. Yeah, battle tactics are great. Pho, oh yes, pho, love pho. Good Vietnamese soup. All right. Levan nailed it here. Smoked rib elves. Yes. Not enough meat around the bones. I think a Gargant definitely has better meat, but chicken tikka masala. Oh, maybe some palak paneer. This is turning into a what's the food stream called? A mukbang. We'll do an ogre mukbang stream. Do you like any of the battalions? Do you like any of these? Like, because like Earlbad and Yulbad, it caught me off for a second. I'm like, wait a second. These two things are the same, except that they have a different ability.
Yeah, exactly. They just renamed the same battalions that we used to have before. Eurobad and Drolbad, they used to be a lot of fun back in 2nd edition. No, unless we go into a meta with a whole bunch of screens and little itty bitty units, so we can use the junk mob to have both the scrap launchers kind of getting their bonuses from having the Noblars and giving the an attack to some. It would only be on the scrap launcher. I just don't see it. Thunder Tusks don't carry their weight, even though that's a Magnificent, which is the one that catches me the most. Thunder Tusks aren't worth it. That's too many points. You'd rather have either at this moment in time, and it'll depend on, I guess, the new GHB having the attack. Can't remember what the 2 cross swords, but the free all-out attack for a Stonehorn Beast Rider or a Mournfang unit, that could be interesting. I think Swift. That one could be too. It depends on what the GHB battalions end up being. If we're in a situation again where everybody's in either bounty hunters or such like that, we end up being better there. So these are, at the moment, I don't see it, but something to keep in the back of the mind for new GHB.
I will challenge you for a second because we know that the Mournfang... No, it's the Beast Riders. I was just going to say, because Swift with a free at the double or forward to victory might allow you to get around anyone who's not elite issuing their own commands. So if you don't have the voice of the avalanche, that might be a way to issue or get that charge in without having to issue it yourself. So might be something to consider.
True, but at the same time, wouldn't you at least like kind of saying like in this moment in time, wouldn't you rather have +1 damage if they're fighting little guys? Just putting them up to damage 5 for their horns on the charge, it's debatable, I guess, both ways.
Yeah, I'm talking about a world outside of bounty hunters because it won't last forever. Also, before we move on to,
I could see it.
Before we move into other things as well, Bartek mentioning, and I would trust the Frost Lord Howe. I know Howe was looking into some things and mentioned the core rules confirms carry out is just the attempt. So if you did raw, you wouldn't have to successfully land raw. You would just have to carry out the monstrous rampage, and that would count towards the 4 that you would have to carry. 4. That's 4, not that. But yeah, so it's just an attempt that doesn't have to be successful. All right, let's talk lists.
Okay, that makes that battle tactic, I think, a lot stronger.
Yeah, it does, especially if you're setting up the charge. But let's talk list. We talked 90 minutes. We've kind of got your thoughts and thinking around the book. You've got some ideas. Now, this is not necessarily to say this is the only list. This is the only way to play ogres. But Jacob has provided 3 lists that we're going to go through. The first one is Boulderhead. It has a Frostlord on Stonehorn. You can see it here. Voice of the Avalanche, Arcane Tome, Rockmane Eldar, and Flaming Weapon. Huskard on Stonehorn, Blood Vulture, Metal Cruncher, Pulverizing Hailstorm. Huskard on Thunder Tusk with the Blood Vulture, Rime Frosthide, and Keening Gale. You've also got 2 units of Mournfang Pack, a 1 Stonehorn Beast Rider, and 2 units of Gorges coming in at 2k on the nose. What does this list do? How does it work? Where's the key synergies? Talk me through this one.
It is you're going full smooth brain. You're sending your Frost Lord, threaten and go for that other for that side objective. You're having your Beast Riders go up the side with your 2 Mournfang to try and come off that side. You have the Gorgers popping up to give you either defense on your flanks if they're trying to deep strike in, or going on their side for the free battle tactics. And you're just going for Pound Town, essentially, seeing how much you can kill, how quickly. That's the fun way to do it.
So this is the ABC list. This is the always be charging list. You're maximizing your Stonehorns. You're getting in. You've got your Mournfang Pack to be charging as well. You got a little bit of sideboard shenanigans with the Gorges. It's interesting actually because they're cheap, right? 80 points a piece, so they give you a bit of flexibility on the board.
Yeah, and the Gorger is preventing the Inspiring Presence. If you are lucky enough to get them in, like if you say you get your more important charges of your Frostlord, your Huskard, and your Beast Riders in, and that Gorger, he could be really impactful if you've killed off half a screen off the charge, having Voice of the Avalanche to have that Frostlord issue across the board to the Gorger to reroll his charge could make a big difference.
I've got a question for you because this comment has raised another question, which is obviously the triple Blood Vulture just doing a bunch of cheeky mortal wounds and sniping heroes, which is great. But there was another thing. There was another rule that I question the value. And if I don't take the Blood Vulture, I can take the trap, that trap thing. I don't know if you remember the trap where you can, what is it? What's the stupid rule? Like, do you see value in going the trap over the Blood Vulture, or do you see the snag thing? The reel them in, is it? Reel them in. After the attack made with the chain trap scores a hit on an enemy monster. If it's not destroyed on a 4-up, the monster is snagged, and each time it moves, it must finish close.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
I wouldn't take it solely for the reason that the chain traps are the worst possible thing to not have break on you every time you try and take them anywhere. As far as the rule itself, I can only see it. Yeah, you have to get a 4-up and then a 4-up to get it to even do anything. The only time I could see it doing anything of real value is because most of the monsters you're going to try and be shooting it at, it prevents a retreat because they can't move farther away from you from that specific model. It could help with some shenanigans with stuff like Manfred. If you charge Manfred, you don't get the kill on him, he teleports away. That prevents him from going after your backline more so. You've got a magical chain trap that just jumps 100 yards, right? But I can't see the use of it over a near guaranteed mortal wound on that little support here on the back because the bird.
Yeah, there's too many sequence failures, right? Because you've got to score the hit on the enemy monster, not kill it, and then if it hasn't died and you did score the hit on a 4-up, then it's snatched. So you could go through this entire sequence and then roll a 3, and it was for nothing.
Yeah.
And, as Bartek said as well, the Vulture got buffed as well. So now it's board wide as opposed to it used to be, was an 18 or 30-inch range. So you could be sniping, and you've got multiple
30.
Blood Vultures here. So you could be sniping across the board. Yeah, it's brutal. Anything else you'd call out on this list? Like it's a simple list, but it's an effective list. This is a low model count. Very simplistic, in synergies and what it's trying to do. It's very independent with the way you play on the board. So it's just, it's a fun list. It's a great list.
Yeah. It's one that's going to be really, really deployment dependent because with having as many hero monsters as you do, you're not going to get choice of first turn against most lists because you're going to be at minimum 4 if you change the battalions around. So you're always going to be going either being forced to go first because they're trying to bait you in, or you're going to be made to go second as they try and alpha you off in like Ironjaw's cases. So you're going to be really dependent on those Mournfang packs to try and screen. And if you want to even put the Gorgers in the sky, if you don't want to just have one little turd sitting out in front of you to take a charge, make their charge impossible, etc. The placement on this is going to be key.
Yeah. Before we go to your second list, I just want to shout out, this comment has made my day. Hello World saying, obviously in reference to the Blood Vulture, that they can go hit somebody else on a different table to them. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Show me a TO that at a GT that lets me do a Blood Vulture to help my friend, and that TO I owe a beer. Like that's gold. Imagine that. You're like, yeah, I want to go help my friend score their objective. I'm going to send my Blood Vultures on table 27. The second list is your Underguts. You've got No Place for the Weak. This is a bit more of a this is obviously using your Iron Blasters. You got a Butcher, which is a Tenderizer, and the Molten Entrails. The Frostlord on Stonehorn, which is a General, Touched by the Everwinter, the Seed of Alvagar, Rockmate Eldar, and Pulverizing Hailstorm. You've got a Slaughtermaster with the Trophy Rack and the Blubber Grub Stench. 6 Ogre Gluttons. You've got 2 Mournfang, 3 Iron Blasters, and you've got Ravenashing Jaws, the Endless Spell, and Noblars. So this one you use 2 battalions. You use the Warlord and Bounty Hunters, given you have lots of troops.
Yeah. Due to having 3 Iron Blasters, you're again going to be at minimum 4 drops. Because the only battalion that the 1-drop battalion only allows a single Iron Blaster. So you could 1 or 2, you're better off just getting all the bonuses you can. So this is the list I'm kind of favoring at the moment. It needs a little bit of tweaking, but it has all the things that I like. It has casting. It has a priest. It has a good beat stick in the gluttons. It has a screen for the noblars. It's got a little bit of shenanigans with the jaws. Jaws are fast. You can do, if you're positioning your Frost Lord, if you're running him up to take care of something mid-board, you can cast the jaws and essentially use it as like a flank protector. Plop it right next to his weak side, where that's those annihilators or whatever trying to come at. Because you can't end a charge on that flank, you can almost protect yourself with it in a spell. And it has the speed to potentially keep up with the Frost Lord after 2 movements. That's why I like Jaws so much. You could also throw in the Life Swarm, a little bit slower, but again, healing on the Frost Lord is exceptionally good. Butcher, always a good solid one. Always fun to get the maw off and do that 1 or 2 mortal wounds until you spook your opponent and do that 20 that one game. Gluttons, if you're taking them in min units, I would always probably take them with a Lookout Noblar, just because having the +1 bravery is nice, but when you're in combat getting +2 anyways, having the -1 to wound against shooting always, I think, will serve them better. And for Mournfang Paxton 2, having them with the Iron Fist and the Culling Clubs, again, I think is going to do you better. If you're going into 4s, Jaws are super thematic. One of the reasons I love them. Having the Mournfang pack in 2s with the Hackers and Iron Fist does you better, because they're essentially screens and going up there to help the Frost Lord do his job without taking too much, from the Unleash. I do have a Warlord, because command points, you can get kind of hungry on those. The Frost Lord lost he gained a +1 to all Beast Claw charging, but he lost the AoE reroll. So a plus and a minus, you're not as reliable for getting the Mournfang and the Frost Lord in like you used to be with that. It is and it isn't. So it costs a CP now to do that a little bit more reliably. That's why I like Warlord over just a command entourage. And Bounty Hunters, just because Bounty Hunters is stupid strong right now. But Iron Blasters, picking off those either strong heroes that you think are going to threaten your Frost Lord, or then little support heroes hiding at the back with their essentially 39-inch range on their cannonballs and the 21 on the scatter shot, helping take out those front lines. It's nice and rounded. You're thin on bodies with as many heroes as you got, so again, it's going to be a positioning thing. But I think this has got some teeth.
And I imagine the Slaughter Master is... I imagine the Slaughter Master is hanging out with the Iron Blasters with its gruesome trophy rack, giving them a nice little boost as well. You're almost like a backfield support, and then the rest kind of move forward. Yeah. I will say as well,
usually I end up playing the butcher in the little threat of the... Excuse me.
Go on, please. No, so go, Jacob.
The butcher in the hut of the Maw Pot to give the forward support to the Frost Lord and the Mournfang, to give them either Molten Entrails in the first turn or Mystic Shields and whatnot. Denies up front. The Slaughtermaster, he kind of hangs off a little bit to the side. He's still staying within 12 of the Frost Lord as the I forget the name of it, but it's the 3 and the 4. Again, just supercharging up that Frost Lord so he can get in there, do damage. But he can also throw that on the Gluttons or the Mournfang. But he's so squishy. You want to kind of have him hiding off to the side a little bit, because he's going to be a number 1 target again, because of him being the double threat on both the Blubber Grub and the Gruesome Trophy Rack for your Iron Blasters.
Question, and this might be a copy pasta error, because Discord, when you use single and double asterisks, it changes fonts and things. Were the Ogre Gluttons in Bounty Hunter, or were they in Warlord? Was that a copy paste error from me?
That may have been a copy-paste error. The Noblars were supposed to be in the Warlords, and the Gluttons and Mournfang were supposed to be in the Bounty Hunters.
Cool. I thought so. When you do it in Discord, double asterisk turns it into bold. So I had hacked that. That's my bad. That's my bad. But hey, you got to live without Bounty Hunters soon. You got it's got a shelf life. So, but at the moment, yeah, Gluttons with Bounty Hunters is obviously great. The other call out I just want to make with Bartek saying Iron Fist on Mournfang, he's claiming does more damage than Hackers against most saves anyway. Hackers slightly pull ahead against 3-up or 2-up. So bit of maths hammering there. I guess it depends on the meta and what you're fighting into and what's going to give you more value. But that's what Bartek's maths is showing us. Thanks for that.
I believe he's right. I just like having the Iron Fists anyways, because you're not sending them to crack the hard stuff. That's the Frostlord's job. They're there to get shot and potentially throw a couple mortal wounds back when they get attacked.
Yeah, great. I mean, obviously, yeah, the Hackers give you a bit more flexibility. Oh, I mean, obviously, it depends on pros and cons, right? Like the Iron Fist is giving you a bit more flex. And then finally, the last list is the Thunderbellies list. So no place for the weak. You've got your Butcher with Molten Entrails. You've got Slaughtermaster with Levitate. Frostlord on Stonehorn. Basically the same loadout, I think it is. But this one has Craggy, 720 points of goodness. You've got 3 Mournfang pack. And the Horrorghast. That was an endless spell I wasn't expecting to see in a Ogre's list. So how are you mitigating the fact that 1/3 of your points is going into Kragnos, an 18-point wound hero?
He is such a threat by himself that most of the time he ends up being a little distraction Carnifex off by himself. You give him either Levitate to try and help him get where he needs to be the most threatening, and that lets, again, your Frostlord be almost the star of the show to go off and kill the necessary targets. Kragnos counting as, I believe it's 30, putting him right up front and center. And again, Keening Gale working to help Kragnos be a little bit better. If you can get the Levitate off on him, just making Kragnos walk up, stand in your opponent's face, say, deal with me, while your Frostlord and Mournfang go and try and pick around at different stuff. I used to, with the points changes, this is kind of a list I used to run, trying to adapt it for the current edition. The points changes changed it from being able to take either a unit of Noblars or the Jaws and Cogs, like I used to have more reliable cast on Levitate and the Butcher. To having the Horrorghast, you could play down 40, play for the Triumph, get the +1 to wounds on probably a Frostlord at that right time. Horrorghast, I think, was as many, again, peck wounds, because being able now to have Thunderbellies, having the Mournfang run up potentially 20 each turn, keeping up ahead of Kragnos and the Frostlord. So if you're auto-6ing them, they're moving up 20. Kragnos is moving up 10 behind them. They're still within 12. They're getting that kind of that really reliable charge. Having the Horrorghast, I believe it's cast within 12 and then move 8. And then it's a 12-inch aura, I believe, if I read right. So it'll be able to just, if you're, shutting down the
off Inspiring Presence.
Keeping.
Yep.
Yeah, its main ability that I'm looking for is shutting off Inspiring Presence to help when the Frostlord cracks into those screens and he's able to get in the back, keeping those screens from auto-passing, keeping the Mournfang a little bit safer from, again, having because they're going to be sitting there brawling with the screens probably for the 2 or 3 rounds this game takes. It's going to be over quick. Either way, either you're going to win quick or you're going to die quick. Keeping them honest, making them use their command points to try and defend, not even bothering to use all up, Inspiring Presence. It'll be a brutal one.
I think personally, I'd probably play with the Triumph. I think I would. I mean, there's too much. Like, there's Lumineth, you got Tzeentch, you got Seraphon. You've got a lot of magic dom happening at the moment, dominance, and not a lot of native pluses to cast the Horrorghast. So I think personally, I would just not run the horror gust, but I do see the value in why you would do it, especially if you can clear. I mean, there's too much bravery 10 as well. There's so much bravery 10. I don't know. It's situational, I guess.
Yeah, I personally see a lot of beastmen, so I've been somewhat clamoring for a horror guest because I see beastmen constantly. But yeah.
Yeah, and I guess this is the benefit of this discussion, right? It's early thinking. We get to practice. Some people, other people in the community. And I know you're a champion in my Discord as well. We go, oh, I tried this. This worked really well. Have you considered this? And we kind of all grow and learn together and kind of work and crack through this battletome, which is awesome. And that's probably the benefit of doing such an early discussion is we get our thoughts together and people are going to jump in the chat and we discuss and pros and cons. A couple of burning questions before I kind of we wrap this up, because it's been a great chat, by the way. We could probably go for hours. I know Levan was talking a little bit about, Gargants. Would you bring in a mercenary mega Gargant into the new book? So you've got actually options of all of them. You can do the Beast Smasher, the Kraken Eater, the Wall Stomper, the Gatebreaker, not King Broad, but all of the other mega Gargants. Would you bring any in?
I think I don't think we take the Gatebreaker simply because he's pretty much a Frost Lord that costs a little bit more. He has the shooting attack, which is okay, but we're so tight on points right now that I couldn't see a Gatebreaker. A Kraken Eater, maybe. If you're playing Underguts, having that kind of big body up there to help with your objective play while keeping your cannons a little bit safer in the back, I could potentially see that. His damage, he's also ran 2, I believe 4 damage with his stuff. He possibly, and he could also, he's like a horror guest on wheels, I suppose. He's not held up by the Noblar screens. There might be some play in a Kraken Eater. The Beast Smasher, I don't see, unless again we're going backwards into a monster meta. He has no shooting attacks. He has a Ren 3 attack. Yeah, nah. And then the War Stomper. He's really good at dealing with chaff, which again we have gluttons to do that for significantly cheaper. Gluttons will do. I think they actually heavily outdamage a War Stomp, if I'm reading it right. The only reason I'd consider a War Stomper maybe is the mercenary trait he gets, where he gives a -1 to hit aura off, which potentially could be useful for helping keep if you're playing like full on Gutbusters, keeping them alive a little bit better. But yeah, I could see maybe the Kraken Eater in Underguts, maybe the War Stomper in a like a full Gutbusters list, but other than that, not really.
I would have said no in most cases, with the exception of maybe a Gatebreaker. I could see it's got an ability where you can sacrifice its attacks and on a 4-up do 4d6 mortal wounds. So if you just want to absolute wallop something and have a big body of 35 wounds, I could see that. But I think if I'm an Ogre player, I'm more likely to go Frostlord and Stonehorn, even if I'm a Gutbuster player. If I want to get a tanky hero, it's some things that are already synergistic. I get a lot of things that are in my book. I think you're losing too much going into the mercenary alley. But the other consideration, and a question from the chat from Hello World, is what about allies? I don't really talk about allies in my last video, but you can bring in Aelguzzler, Gargants, and Troggoths. Is there anything in that for you?
No. Aelguzzler, Gargants they're just so bad. It's hilarious. Rotgut Troggoths are slightly more durable Iron Guts with none of the abilities. They're what is it? 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, -2, 3, which is a 1 less attack, 1 less to hit Iron Gut. They're 145 versus the 270 Iron Guts, but I think the synergy of Iron Guts, the bites, the impact hits is it's gonna do it for him. I think Trogs are also too low bravery, and we don't want to be spending CPs to auto pass Trogs over our own boys if need be. The Felwaters, their shooting range is too short. We'd rather just take Lead Belchers for their 18-inch -2 shots instead.
Yeah, and you can't take the Troggoth from Cruel Boys. It's specific to the Gloomspite Gitz Troggoth. The only exception I would have here, and Games Workshop are a bunch of jerks for this, I would take the Troggoth Hag if I could, but she's 405 points. 5 points.
Yeah.
If she was 400, I'd ally her every day, but she's 5 points over.
Yeah, her spell would be amazing. Having the -1 to hit, -1 to save, getting Ribcracker back on our boys, that would pay so many dividends.
Yeah. A couple of burning, maybe quick rapid fire questions, and then we'll kind of bring it home. This has been awesome, Jacob. Any advice for me when it comes to deploying with ogres? Are you someone who deploys at the top of the line? Are you someone who is castling up? Like, how do you look at deployment? Obviously, battle plans, opponents, priority, and all that stuff is going to come into play. But is there any advice you'd give me generally?
I think you're going to be reactionary more so. You're going to be reacting based on what your opponent is. If your opponent is running Iron Jaws, and most of the time talking to your opponent, you know who's going to be going first. If they're Iron Jaws and they're lower drops than you, they're going to be trying to go first. Deploy accordingly. If they're playing Lumineth, you know they're going to be trying to shoot you off the board. A caveat to that, to Lumineth, probably both Snakes and KO, is don't even bother deploying back because you're going to get shot anyways. Most of the time. If you can deploy at like 24 and 1/10 back from the bow snakes for the hero phase shooting, that might pay you dividends, but Lumineth, they're going to shoot you. KO, they're going to shoot you. Just get up as close as you can.
Yeah. Do you find that your opponents give you, because a lot of your lists that you just showed me were high drops. You were never 3 drops or 1 drop, right? So you're always at the mercy of your opponent giving you first or second. Do you find people give you first knowing that you're out of charge range and they're worried about maybe you double turning them from 1 to 2? Or what do you find just generally when it comes to that first battle round?
It's, if you're playing against somebody who knows what you do, they're going to make you go first and deploy accordingly. So you got to go the back and forth. If you know you're going to get made to go first, get your objectives, get your secure space, and try and deploy accordingly. The one thing that I'm noticing a lot is people are not necessarily forcing me to go first when I have cannons. The threat of the cannon is making them want to come embrace me more so. So I think the Iron Blasters are going to shake up our stuff a lot. I've had a couple Stormcast opponents that were 1-dropping me were still choosing to go first because they wanted, even though like they had their heroes in the back line, no way I could get to them, they were still choosing to go first because they wanted to get at least 1 or 2 of my cannons offline first. So, which in turn gave me the chance for a double turn, which happened those 2 games. So it's going to be an interesting couple new kind of learning experience, learning to have the range threat, because 39 is quite the threat range.
Yeah, and like I think, Bartek mentioning here, whenever, and as an opponent, whenever I play against ogres before this battletome, you'd give away first because unless Kragnos was in the list, it's super unlikely that you're going to hit the charge in turn 1. It's so unlikely. So that gives me the opportunity to then respond with some magic, some shooting, some positioning, and if I get the double turn, that's a way for me to pull down one or many of your heroes. Or at least it's you go, I go, you go, I go. But you've raised an interesting point with the Iron Blasters now with that range of 30. That does now pose some very serious threats, especially if you synergize with the Grossum Trophy Rack. You've got multiple Iron Blasters. Now it's a hard decision. Do I take first and try to handle some of these shooting, or you're going to snipe out and destroy some of my key pieces? Or do I give it away, try to handle these 30-inch attacks without any of my critical buffs like Mystic Shield or anything up, and hope for the best? I think you've now posed a very challenging question to your opponents.
Yeah, that's what's going to help you in Ogre is you give your ideal situation is you give your opponents 2 decisions, both of them bad, and when they pick one bad, you just take the other and run with it.
Yeah. And that's how, that's the key, right? Forcing your opponent to make decisions. What's the key to success? Like, what's the key to victory? Because you have had some great wins and, you've done very, very well. Again, #1 ITC ranked Ogre player. What's been the key to success so far when it comes to running Ogres? Is there anything that happens during the game? Any mindset things? Is there anything that you could share with us to make us better Ogre players?
Know what your opponent does is as trivial as that sounds, knowing that what unit they got is going to try and target your important heroes, knowing what their battle plan is, predicting what their battle plan is to play around that is going to do you the best, because like I've been saying, your stuff is pretty good on its own. It's decent. Most of your stuff can handle themselves on their own. So if you know what your opponent's trying to do, but they don't know what you're trying to do, you can throw them off their game enough to where you can capitalize on mistakes because they don't understand that, say, my little Iron Blaster in the back, it's no pushover. He can run up and he can slap some face. Or that you can tell your opponent, like I've had opponents before where I tell them, I don't have a lot of tricks. I run forward and I hit stuff really hard. They deploy right at the line, and I say, okay, I run forward, I smash all your stuff's dead. Sorry. So knowing what they do and knowing what you do is essentially it.
Yeah. I think the other consideration as well is the Frostlord on Stonehorn. Everyone's been stomped at least once if you run it in your list. Now, obviously, if you're Gut Busters and you're not running them, I think there's going to be a lot of opponents playing against Gut Busters going, what is this army? What do you do? Like when I play with my Gloomspite Gits, people have no idea what the army does because it's not very common. It's just like, what? What does this do? Like hungry, eating, movement shenanigans, Noblar traps, like what? But with your Frostlord, I think when you got a Frostlord on Stonehorn, it is a Carnifex of distraction. People will see it. They'll want to take it down as quick as possible, which obviously works in your advantage, right? Because, yeah, you might lose your general, but in turn, your whole army is able to be unwounded, do its thing. It can be a big distraction piece. So I guess learning how to play without your Frostlord, when it goes down, it'll be targeted. But 2, how do you maximize the rest of your army? I think that's some key learnings as an Ogre player.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be keeping your Frostlord safe is, again, why you have the Mournfang to help him out, help him be where he needs to be, help him stay safe when he's where he needs to be. But I think in the near future, people are going to fear Iron Guts and fear Gluttons for saying, oh, those little foot dudes, oh, they're going to slap somebody into space.
Yeah. I can't wait. I hope you get at least a couple of games in with the battle plan that lets you, I've forgotten its name, that allows you to rally. Is it on a 5-up if you're on the objective? Or is it 4-up if you're like getting some additional rally on some of those like Gluttons? So good.
Yeah. I want to eventually, just for shits and giggles, I want to do that fun 18 Glutton hammer list and just see how far they can get before they start taking man, that see how much damage I can get if I like throw them an Archeon or something.
Would you consider the Crodspine?
I don't, just based off of principle. But it does solve
All
one
right,
of our
outside
problems.
of principle. All right, outside of principle. Yeah.
It does solve one of our problems of not having flying and not having a anvil piece, having something else besides a Frostlord for your opponent to worry about. But being 480, costing more than a Frostlord, you could maybe the bonus to casting. He gives the reroll charge aura, which could be something to keep in the back of your head, because rerolling charges is with Iron Guts, Gluttons, Mournfang, and the Frostlord all having a flat +1. That stacks up a lot. +1 to cast, making your butchers back in the back have +2 to cast when they're near the pot. There's some good synergy. We'll see. It's got some play, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you are a man of principle, and I appreciate that you are a man of principle, skill, and sheer power of will, as Sunshine in Black has mentioned. I love it. But it does compete with the Frostlord on Stonehorn, right? It's a tanky monster. Obviously, there's pros and cons on either side. It doesn't have the mortal wounds like the monstrous rampages and the trampoline charge, and it doesn't have those things, but it's going to pin your opponent in with no retreat. Obviously, the way it handles wounds can work in your favor, and it can stop. Most of your army is relatively squishy, right? Like, you don't have a lot of high armor saves outside of your monster heroes or your monster troops, so it can be one way, especially maybe in the Gutbuster side, if you want to get some, like, would I take a Mega Gargant was a question we asked earlier. I think Kronspine fits in your list better than a Mega Gargant, but, depends on what you want. And if you are someone who wants to play Kronspine competitively, it's very good. All right. 2 more questions and we're going home. First one is, how do I beat you as an ogre player? If I'm someone who has listened to this and I'm not an ogre player and I'm like, how on earth do I handle this new book? Do you have any advice to me to defeat my next ogre player?
If you're playing an opponent that has a butcher with the Blubbergrub Stench, or has a tyrant with the tyrant / a butcher with the trophy rack, he is going to be one of your important targets. But don't laser focus on him to having the point of letting the Frostlord, some monster going out the back. If you've got long range ability through magic or your own shooting to take out the cannons themselves, that'll save you a ton of time, because it's 9 wounds on a 4-up. It's not bad, but that's also not a lot. So they can go down pretty quick. I had people Stormcast players calling down the Comet, took down 2 cannons, top of 1. It's not impossible. It depends on your list. You got to play around whether you're doing. You got to play against the cannons, know their range. 39-inch, that one hurts, but that's not going to hurt quite as much as the hail shots. And then if you're playing against monsters, yeah, give me something to eat. That'll be good. Give me that or a beer. We'll be best friends. If you're playing against the heavy monster list, remembering that I can do the follow-through charge and move really far. Don't leave a nice big hole for me to set my base down next to your squishy general or hero. And if you're going to kill a Frostlord, you're going to need to put a lot into him and be prepared for that, because he can be incredibly tanky. So if you're going to kill him, you're going to be doing turn all guns, turn all men, get going.
And we didn't even talk about your Frostlord gain. I mean, all of your monsters gain 2 wounds, right? They all increase. So, let alone the boost in Boulderhead. So now, what a Boulderhead Stonehorn, Frostlord Stonehorn is what, 17 wounds?
Yeah,
18?
17. So 17 it's 17. 15 for a Frost Lord's base, 14 for Beast Rider / Huskard's base. So 17 wounds, 3 up armor, 5 up ward on Stonehorn. Probably going to be -1 to wound. If they know you're coming after him, they're going to be doing best day ever so he's going to be a 2 up, 5 up. If you're going to be putting shooting into him, all defense, so 1 up, 3 up, 5, or 1 up, 5 up, and healing from if you don't take him down, pop the pot, pop heroic recovery. He's just right back up and going again.
This is Nurgle. Like, if anyone's ever tried to pull down a Great Unclean One, you are on par with the Great Unclean One. A couple of wounds different, but you are on par. And I think people know how tough a Great Unclean One is, but it doesn't do nearly as much damage as what a Frostlord on Stonehorn does. But yeah, I love it. I love it. Jacob, I got one final question for you, and then I'm going to have lunch, and you're going to go handle things that you handle. You missed out on a couple of things. There's some things in this book that you would have loved to have included. If there was one unit you get to add to the Ogor Mawtribes, a brand new unit, something different, what would you add to the next book?
If I could add anything I want, I honestly think I would like a bruiser, a foot hero, less than a tyrant, but still able to go out there and actually brawl a little bit, give kind of like a mega boss does, where he can support the troops around him a little bit better. Have, instead of having just the tyrant, having a little hero that's not a caster, I think would be something I'd like, because this army is honestly, I'm really happy, honest to God.
I'm going to pick a low-hanging fruit. You know what I really want? Unmounted Stonehorns and Thunder Tusks. Give me some wild beasts.
Yeah.
Also a named character. It drove me insane when Soul Black Gravelords got a named Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon to be Prince Vordry with literally just a head swap. It was literally a head swap. Nothing new. It was just the same kit. Same kit from the 2000s. Where's my named heroes? Where is my Greasiest Goldtooth?
Yeah.
Where is my named Huskard or Thunder Tusk or give me someone named. Give me somebody.
Yep. Bragath Bardock, I believe it's something like that. He would probably be. I wish they'd give us that, because that would be sweet. I have a little bit of concern with named heroes, because like Gordrak, he's really cool, but you never see him. The named other named orc, Gobsprak, and what's the other one? The other Cruel Boys one. Named heroes are cool, but man, most of the time they miss the mark with them. I feel more often than not.
No, I love my named heroes. And I think if Grease's Goldtooth came back, like a unique, fatty, 10 it's probably one thing that's been missing on the Gutbuster side, is it doesn't have a tanky hero. Nobody who has more than 10 wounds. Give me a named Noblar hero. That's an Underworld's Warband. Yeah. Straight up. Underworld's Warband. Named Noblar hero.
Yeah.
Oh, even like a Morfang hero would be great too. I'd love to see some more things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be fun. Give a this speed while still keeping the Gutbuster keyword. Make maybe a Rhinox. That would be fun. Fang and a Stonehorn, even.
And I think the only thing I really want to see in the FAQ was just a little bit of cleanup. I think we've already talked a little bit about, like, obviously the Man-Eaters not having the keyword. I think there's some things that need some clarification, but I think mostly this is a solid book. I don't think there's a lot of cleanup and nerfing. I think Warhammer Weekly was talking about this as well. I could see the Iron Blasters going up in points. I think they may be a little bit too cheap now for what they do, but I think they're in a pretty good spot. It's a good book. It's not too messy.
Yeah. The only thing for FAQ would be the has been said by others is the Beast Riders losing the harpoon launcher, even though you physically can't build a kit without the harpoon launcher, is a little bit weird.
Yes.
Assuming that's a typo. Yeah, but most of the stuff it's pretty good. I'm got nothing more to say. I'm happy.
Yeah, that's great, and that's where you want to be. You don't want to have a book that's completely busted because you know it's going to be FAQ'd. And I said this to some people the other day. I'm like, when something is a good war scroll, but maybe it's too high in points or too low in points, points can be adjusted really easily. When you have a bad war scroll, you have a bad war scroll for years. So I would much rather a war scroll and points tweaks than having something that was rubbish, and no points discount sometimes can save a unit. So it's a good book, and like legitimately it's a good book, and I can't wait to see both sides, both the Gutbusters and the Beastclaw Raiders hitting the table again, because especially the Gutbusters, I just haven't seen them since. I don't think I've played against Gutbusters. I played one game on TTS recently with Discord member, but outside of that, I don't think I've played Gutbusters for years.
Yeah. Nah, it was too hard to make it work. The Frost Lord had too much weight on his back.
Yeah. Jacob, if people want to chat to you, is there any shout outs you want to make? I can see Grumdy's been in a chat, being your cheerleader the whole stream. But is there anyone you want to shout out, your local crew? If people want to talk to you, where do they find you on the internet?
Yeah, I'm out here in the Texas meta. If you're out in our area, I'm part of the Dallas Defenders. We're always happy to take on more people. If you'd like to come out here and play, shout out Matt Taylor. He's on the Everchosen podcast. Him and his buddies out there trying to get stuff going. And then if y'all ever get the chance, join us out here in Texas. We got a good meta, good strong meta. Gavin Gagar's out here. Here in North Series going. I'll be joining back in on that soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you, internet gods. I think both sides of us have been an absolute horror show. Thank you for everyone. I hope that the stream wasn't too bad. I think we tried to have a little bit, it was a little bit less interactive than you would normally hear on a show, because I think we'd just be clashing a lot. But this was a great discussion. Jacob, you clearly know your ogres. You are more than welcome now to feast on the Moorpot, and this is great. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section what you think, how you're building your lists. Someone asked earlier about the Gutbuster side. I'm going to try to have another stream as well with somebody else to bring some additional thoughts. So I thought we'd save a few things for another guest to bring some different perspective, and we could go into the other side. But it seems like you really enjoyed it. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, leave me comments. Let me know how you're thinking about the Ogre book, because I think there's a lot of list tech in there. And like, yes, the Iron Blasters are some low-hanging fruit, but I want to see someone do some Noblar tech. I want to see someone build around Noblars and scrap launchers and use the command trait that makes Noblars immune to battle shock within 18 inches. I reckon there's something in that with the traps and Hawthgorn, and I think there's some Noblar. Now is the age of Noblar.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've stunned Jacob. I think I'm stunned Jacob. All right, thanks everyone. We're gonna drop off. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Don't click that. That's
Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. If you did, I would love it if you press like on the video, as well as left me a comment to let me know what your thoughts are. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the video description. I want to give a massive shout out as well to the AOS Coast Patreons and YouTube members who are going in, and the funds of supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you're all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a 1 on a redeploy.